Hello and welcome to Reflecting the Way Radio. This is episode 22 and I'm your host, Evan. We are back after a short hiatus. Reflecting the Way Radio is back on the air. Expect to be seeing a few more episodes on a much more regular basis for the coming months, for the foreseeable future. If you've been following along with us, you know that after a fairly extensive series on Saturn came to a conclusion about 5 weeks ago. We took a little break. That series was pretty heavy. Took quite a lot out of me personally to get that all written and broadcast and the whole works. So if you're just hearing about that now, by all means, I would encourage you to head back over to the website and check that series out if you haven't read it already. It's definitely worth your time. There may be more coming on that in the future, but that remains to be seen. So stay tuned for that. This episode is not going to be a kind of a full-fat hour-long deal. Just wanted to give everybody a bit of an update here. If you want to consider this the premiere or the trailer for Season 2 of Reflecting the Way Radio, feel free to take it that way. If you haven't been paying attention, we did take a couple of weeks off from writing as well on the website after our series concluded, but we have been back in the saddle for a few weeks now. So there is some new content over at reflectingtheway.com. And if you have been paying attention over there, you will know that we are taking a little bit of a different tack here moving forward. Nothing too radically different, but rather than have such a focus on the dark side, which we've had for the past 6 or 8 months, kind of out of necessity, unfortunately, we're going to try and take a little bit more of a holistic approach to the equipping of the saints, where Reflecting the Way was set up to, in one regard, equip believers that are already out there, and by the same token, those that are in the institutional church. I felt that this website should be a resource for those in the institutional church that see things wrong and are looking for a better way. So we are going to have a bit more of a holistic approach to things moving forward. And if you've been following the posts on the blog at reflectingtheway.com, you will have noticed that switch already. The Christian life, if I can use the term Christian life, is exactly that. It's a life. It's not an aspect of your life. It is your life. So with that being said, we are going to be focusing a lot more on a much broader spectrum of topics. Everything from what we have been doing, the Watchmen sort of stuff, the education sort of stuff, the heavy spiritual issues, topics of money and society, that won't be going away. But in addition to it, we will be covering some things, maybe not in any great depth, but just as a bit of variety, kind of trying to encompass the entire Christian lifestyle all at once together. We'll be covering things like health and fitness, spiritual development in a more Jesus-centric sort of way, rather than looking at and exposing the dark side, turning a little bit more attention to the light side, especially for the coming weeks and months, coming off of that fairly dark series that we just concluded. So be looking out for that for sure. There will be some more of that coming out here in the relatively near future. Over the last couple of weeks, we did post a devotional called Broken Pots and Burning Lights. If you haven't checked that out, by all means do so. We take a short look at some of the symbolism in the story of Gideon, where he laid siege to the Midianite camp with only 300 soldiers. And everybody knows the story, but what lots of folks will overlook is the fact that there's some symbolism there with the pots and the lamps and the horns that generally doesn't get talked about. So we talk about that in that article a little bit. Definitely worth your time to check out. We also had an article up, or a blog post rather, finding meaning and opportunity for self-reflection after personal tragedy. And this kind of came up as a direct result of some things in our lives over here, the administration behind Reflecting the Way. We lost a fairly close family member in the last few weeks. And after that happened, within the week, I found myself officiating a funeral, which I had never done before, never mind for somebody who was a blood relation. So that was a bit of an interesting experience, and the outflow of that is recorded in that article, so I would highly encourage you to check that one out as well. There's always lessons to be learned in tragedy, and a death in the family is certainly no exception. And just yesterday, my wife actually wrote an article, being that it was just our anniversary here. Funeral and anniversary, go figure, right? There's a wedding in there too, now that I think about it, but that's neither here nor there. It was just our anniversary here in the last few days, so she wrote an article kind of inspired by our anniversary, speaking about marriage. And it is, I'm going to say 90% aimed at single folks. So if you're in the marriage market, go on and check that out if you like, or even if you are married, you can go have a read. It will certainly do you no harm. I'll let you check that one out on your own time. I didn't write it, so I can't speak to the motivations behind it the same way I can with some of the other stuff. But that's kind of where we're at. And like I said, you can expect to be seeing some new sort of topics from us in the coming weeks and months. We're going to be talking a little bit health and fitness, everything from healthy eating to different things you can do to stay in good shape. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, after all, and if the Levitical priesthood had so many jots and tittles to mind while they were maintaining the tabernacle proper, the building, I think it's safe to say that we have a responsibility to take care of our temple as well. Now, obviously, we don't want to be taking anything to an extreme, but unfortunately, the society in which we live, gluttony is more the norm than it is the exception, and gluttony is a sin. So we'll be talking about that, given some pointers. We're certainly not doctors, so don't take anything we say as gospel, if you take my pun. We'll also be talking a little bit in the coming weeks and months about some money stuff, some debt stuff, some money saving stuff. I know we did a short series of longer articles, I'm going to say before Christmas time, about money on the site. It's under the article and study material section, if you want to check it out, where we talked at some length about what money is, where it comes from, how it works, what it's doing to you, and why it was designed. There will be some tie-in there. Those articles are pretty deep into the spiritual and technical side of money. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the pragmatic, practical side of saving money, cutting bills, reducing debt. We're on an interesting journey with reducing debt ourselves as I record this, which I'm sure you'll see some of the details of that, if not in the immediate future, within the next year or so, I would suspect. So there'll be some of that. I'm thinking, just based on the articles or the posts that we have in the queue already, you're probably going to start seeing a little bit of an emphasis on worship as well. We haven't talked a ton about that on the radio show or on the website to date. The whole topic of worship is pretty large, pretty wide. It's got a lot of different aspects to it. I know there's a couple of posts I'm working on right now dealing with worship in the church, if you can hear my air quotes on my voice, the good, the bad, the ugly, but you will be seeing some of that. Given that my wife and I have recently taken up learning to play music, which in and of itself is an interesting little journey, you may see you may see some content about that. We're certainly in no position to be teaching anybody how to play music, but there are certainly lessons that can be and have been learned beyond the simple chords, notes, and scales learning an instrument. There are things to be learned from learning music. I mean, any music teacher or child who's grown up with music can probably tell you this. Things to be learned when it comes to perseverance and frustration and things like that. But interestingly enough, I have found, and this may be a direct result of the way my brain is wired, that in learning music, not just how to play it, but the theory behind it, in learning that, I have learned more about Freemasonry, the mystery schools, Kabbalah, different occult aspects of the world. I've learned more about that through studying music quicker than I learned from books and documentaries. And I may do a full-length article on that at some point. That won't happen anytime soon, I don't imagine. It's a pretty big topic, but when you start to study music theory, I will tell you that some of the things that the Masons teach and do and other mystery schools and occult groups, it suddenly starts to make a whole lot of sense. And I'm not saying that in a positive way. I'm saying that in an understanding, comprehending sort of way where you start to see what they're talking about with ratios and relationships in frequency and height and spirals and different designs in their symbols and stuff like that. So we may go there, but we will probably talk at least a little bit in a couple different posts maybe over the coming weeks and months about music, the benefits, the challenges, that sort of thing. Shopping for an instrument, you name it. So there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. There's lots of it is done already for a few weeks in advance anyway. So I can tell you there'll be fairly regular releases on the website for the next couple of months for sure, and I'm hoping much longer than that. So if you haven't already done so, I would encourage you to head over to the website and sign up for our email newsletter. We try and send out an update every time there is new content, which recently has been about once a week. So we're not flooding your inbox every day by any means. We don't sell your data or anything like that. We're a pretty small kind of operation, so no worries there. You can just get the latest content when it drops, kind of be the first. You can also head over and find us on Twitter. We are at Reflect the Way on Twitter. And we also have a Facebook page, which is probably the most active spot you'll find us at in terms of posting and replying and stuff like that. If you have a question or a thought or a comment, or if you'd like us to cover something in an episode or on an article, please, by all means, drop us an email through the website or post on our Facebook page. We're Reflecting the Way on Facebook as well. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear, and we will see if we can come up with something for you. And with that, I will leave you. For me, it's this evening, but whenever you're listening, I will leave you. And blessings.